The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have Brian Healy with Education Market Experts, and I'm Liz Burkhart with Agile Education Marketing. And what we wanted to do, last month and this month was bring in more of a sales perspective. So, with Agile, we really work with marketing professionals, and we do work some with sales, but not a lot with like the strategy and actual go-to-market activities. So Brian's the expert on that, and so we've asked him to be a part of this. So thank you so much, Brian. And we also scheduled this 2 or 3 months ago, and so of course with the world changing and everything changing, schedules change. So thank you again, Brian, because you adjusted your schedule to make this time and date. So everyone just know, like, that's how important it is for us to make sure that you guys get the information you need to continue to be successful, and that's what we want for all of you. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking time out of your day. So today we've got some very up-to-the-minute, prepared but not overly produced content and kind of a panel discussion for you about unlocking influential educators. And when we initially chose this topic, it seemed very straightforward for us. And now it's very different, but a lot of the rules and ways of working haven't changed. And so what Brian's going to do is share some of his up-to-the-minute experiences to really address the current situation and how it hasn't changed, but how you might want to think about it differently or execute it a little bit differently. So with questions, I know that we had asked people to bring them in ahead of time. So we've got a couple. Please ask your questions as we go. I'm going to do my very best to keep track of them, and if something is relevant to what we're talking about at that point, I will ask Brian at that time. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end, and we'll work really hard to get through everyone's questions, because again, everything's changed, so we don't know everything. And Brian, we went through this yesterday, and he has a lot of really thoughtful insights, and nothing is ever for the first time. And so the other good news about having Brian with us today is that he's experienced things like this before, and he can give us some perspective and some insights that can help us sort of better understand what's to come. Not for sure. We don't have a crystal ball. At least I don't think he has a crystal ball. So we'll see. So thank you for joining us. A couple housekeeping things. We also have Kara Murphy on the line from Agile, and she is going to help all of us behind the scenes. So if you have an audio issue, or if you have a technical question, something like that, she will be responding, and she will be actually advancing the slides. So something else I want to make sure everyone considers is we've got Kara advancing slides, so Brian can really pay attention to what he's being asked and consider the content. So just you might hear the advanced slides, etc. You will receive a link to the recording of this in your inbox. So whichever email you registered with is the one where we'll send this. And we'll also, Brian has extended a really nice and generous offer to everyone who's attending today. So we'll get to that at the end, and it will also come as part of your follow-up email. So you'll get the information on how to take advantage of that at the end. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, I think we're good. So you know what? There was one other thing I wanted to make sure that we all considered. Sorry, Brian. Almost ready. If bandwidth for you gets crazy, it's going to be okay. Like I've got 2 kids right now who are on video calls. We've all got crazy work situations and stuff. If my video goes wonky, that's why. If my audio goes wonky, that's why. So we're all going to do the best we can. We're all in the same situation. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. So you weren't like, oh no, aliens are taking her. No, it's just my kids sucking up the bandwidth. So let's go ahead and get started. So Brian, you are with Education Market Experts. And would you like to sort of talk a little bit about what your organization does and how you help people with the education space?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Liz. Happy home sheltering, everyone. Hopefully everybody's surviving it, and the cabin fever isn't crushing our spirits too much. it's kind of, obviously we had a lot more time to reflect for all of us. And my personal belief is we're going to come out of this stronger and better. So we're all in it together. So we got to stay healthy. Yeah, looking forward to spending the next 45 minutes or so with everyone. Yeah, I'm the president of our firm, Education Market Experts. And what we are is our firm is a team of experts who have all spent their whole career in education. All of us started as educators at some level, and then worked in the schools, and then jumped across the aisle to the supplier side. In my case, I didn't realize I had a gift for writing curriculum. I never realized that until I realized that could be a profession. So, so part of the process is, between myself and my 4 other business partners, we typically help edupreneurs, those that are in the business of, seeing opportunities and creating products or services that really cater to schools or caters to early pre-K, childcare centers, both in the U.S. and abroad. So what we do is, we work advising, we work with coaching, we work with implementing plans, and also at times we also help with some fundraising if needed. So we've collectively, our team is, we've got about 125 years of frontline selling curriculum, services, professional development to primarily K-12 and also higher ed decision makers in the US, Canada, and around the globe. So that's a little bit about Education Market Experts. We're excited to be here with everyone today.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. So I think the first thing, right, we want to talk about unlocking influential educators. That's the whole crux of this. And the first thing when I think about, these district leaders is how do you get time with them? And so Kara, if we could go ahead and move to our next visual, that'd be great. And then, thank you. So, and it's all about the success, right, with the districts, but it's how do you get the time? How does that work?
Yeah, well, boy, has that been changing, everyone, right? Over the past 45 days, my gosh. In some ways, it's much more challenging, but also in some ways, it's a little bit more personal right now, because obviously everyone's still working, at the district level, putting in their plans, putting in their remote learning models. And we found that oftentimes there's more opportunity to have one-to-one authentic discussions around, their challenges, what they're facing, and also them looking at potential solutions to help, especially in this new blended world of, remote plus more than likely, we believe everyone's going to come back to school eventually. I guess really more the question is when. In terms of how to get time, with district leaders, really a lot of these things are, a lot of you probably know, but I can't stress enough, probably the most important thing is really do your research, understand what are the initiatives, right, of the district, and to see how your service or your products will move their priorities forward, right? Because that's, number one, because if there's not a fit, if the district doesn't have a priority for, let's say, a new learning management system that they want to, potentially look to bring in, and if you're in the learning management, sales world, you're trying to sell learning management systems to districts. If that's not a priority, probably is not a good fit, right? So you don't want to be wasting time. Also, a good way to get time with district leaders is existing relationships, right? Is there a way to gather any inside information on the power dynamics of the decision-making within the districts? Now, obviously, this is going to vary greatly from, rural districts are going to be different from small districts. Small districts are going to be much different than medium-sized districts. Medium-sized districts are going to be significantly different than the large urban districts, where oftentimes, there's school boards and there's lots of power brokers that are in the decision-making mix. So really understanding who they are, trying to get some inside information on the power dynamics and how decisions are made, really, really, really important. Also, follow your fans, right? Hopefully you've all got some fans, right? You've got some current customers that are district customers or principals that you have relationships with. And movement, as you guys all know, there's roughly a 25% turnover, right, year over year in leadership roles. So over the course of 4 years, what does that mean? Well, more than likely your contacts within that district or that school are going to probably turn over, right? So what does that mean? Good and bad. The good, they move on to a new role. Hopefully, if your relationship is strong and you've delivered on your promises, they're going to bring you with you. Also, the good is, hey, there's a new person coming in, and if you're the incumbent, your service or product is already in that school or district, gives you another chance to hopefully build that renewal. So really understanding, your relationships, how they're moving along, and also following those folks that are currently blocking you from having success in a district or a school. Sometimes it's more important once you understand or once you learn that, if they're going to be making a move, that may give you another chance to get some time with the real decision makers within the district. Does that answer your question, Liz?
Yeah, it does. And I think that this also is a really nice segue into a couple of the methodologies, approaches that you use. So let's move to the next, our next visual. And we can talk a little bit more about the arc. And the point you made yesterday, I think, the one that hit home for me was know where you are.
That's right.
Alert. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. So oftentimes, a lot of our edupreneur partners, right? When we start working with them, the very first thing we like to do is we like to call it the look in the mirror exercise. And really what this is looking at yourself or looking at your new or your existing company and really understanding what is your channel sales strategy. Are you in the business of selling classroom resources? You're selling paper and pencils and whiteboards and those types of items, right, that teachers need for their day-to-day usage. Cool, that's great. So understanding where you're at in terms of what type of sales strategy would support, growing a product line that fits, that particular line. And then conversely, if you're in the business of selling learning management systems, which is very complex, a very long sales cycle, sales process, it's much more relational in nature. How does your channel strategy fit what you're trying to sell? So when you look at this bell-shaped curve here, if you had to, if I always like asking the question, if you can name one or two companies that you think would fit the far right-hand side of this bell-shaped curve here, meaning what companies come to mind when you think of this is a transactional sales model, and therefore we hire our people, we build our systems to support this transactional sales model. Well, the example or the way I would answer that question is the company that best represents us on the far right-hand side of this curve is Amazon, right? I think they're like the ultimate in a transactional sales model, but then as you kind of go to the far left-hand side of this bell-shaped curve, this is where we're looking at the relational model. And this is where a lot of edupreneur or a lot of education companies exist, especially if you're in professional services, PD. If you're selling content, if you're selling cloud-based curriculum, if you're selling content management systems, having relationships and having your sales are dependent upon your sales team engaging and educating with potential buyers, you're going to be at the far left here. And so as you can see, having this relational sales model, there's all types of separate issues and challenges as opposed to having a transactional sales model. So think about kind of where you're at on this spectrum. And once you really self-identify, okay, this is kind of who we are, and this is our sales channel strategy, at that point in time, that's when what we find is when we really begin to have the breakthrough, and we really begin to start devising and implementing, the sales growth with a lot of our clients.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think too that helps, right? With like sort of understanding how big of a sales force you need, or how much coverage, things like that. Do you have, direct selling? There's a lot of things that go into that as well, which just as you were talking, that made me think of that. So let's move, because you shared this, and then you'd also prepared some other information for us. So let's go ahead and move into that. If we could, thank you. And this is familiar to me as a marketer. I think, though, the way that you adapt it for sales is very useful. It's also very straightforward. And I think that one of the points, teach them, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right? So for me, the biggest takeaway is you have to tell someone the same thing over and over and over in order for it to make sense. And so this is just super straightforward, super simple, and brilliant. So thank you. Please share.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this is the other thing, right? It's okay if you're trying to get time with a district decision maker, especially right now, right? Time is precious. Getting access to them, we can talk about specific tactical things about that. But once you actually get a meeting, then the question is, okay, got the meeting, now what? Great that you got the meeting, but we're in the business of having a great meeting, which leads to the next meeting with most likely a team or a group of influencers and decision makers at the district office. So for you to get through that first meeting, that district level decision maker, obviously they're going to have to see there's value in this, right? How are you different? What value are you bringing to me that we don't already have or know about, right? So really it's understanding the what is already there, but really now at this point, trying to differentiate, trying to build a very strong value proposition in a very clear and concise way. We find that 8 out of 10 education companies don't do this well right now, because really telling what is your story, what is your brand promise, what are you going to promise, what are you going to deliver, what are the expected outcomes for that district in terms of whether it's teacher usage or engagement or student outcomes, which is the holy grail, right? What are these things are you promising that you can come in there and see value? You can demonstrate there's real value with these decision makers. And, this is the biggest thing. So we developed this whole value proposition and message framework. It looks, basically like a bunch of words on a piece of paper. However, as we get into it, as we go deeper into this, there are significantly a number of layers behind each one of these, different sections within this document here. And really, everything kind of drives towards the bottom box, is to how do you tailor communications to your different decision makers combined with your different influencers, right, within our industry, and really sharing the value prop as to how you're going to make their life better, easier, faster, i.e. the whole differentiation method. So this is something too that, especially now when a lot of us in sales have extra time, this is really more of a question, is what are each of you doing to improve your skills to get decision makers to want to reach out to you? And so really kind of sharpening your tools, sharpening all of your skills, especially in this, how do we differentiate? How do we provide value in a very clear and concise way? This is a great time to do that.
Yeah, it is. And so kind of thinking about the points that you've made up to now, the other side of this, right, is like, how do you find the right districts for your product? So let's move, and then the next couple visuals are just to sort of reinforce the points that we're making, right? So then it's like, narrow your focus. How, rather than talking to everyone, we talked a little bit about efficiencies. These are, edupreneurs, small, you've got 2 salespeople. You want to really tailor your conversations, which takes a lot of work. What are some ways you might be able to narrow the district, schools, teachers that you're going after?
Yeah, great question. I mean, this is, again, super important. And I always like to lead with the answer first, right? So the primary word here is segmentation, right? So no 2 districts, in the US are the same. No 2 districts have, the same exact buying criteria at any given time. However, what we do have, and Agile is a great data intelligence partner, is we do have data, right? We do have the ability to segment districts, whether it's on size, whether it's geography, whether it's funding, whether it's there's more innovative districts than others, whether you have new superintendents or not, right? Whether you have districts are integrated with Clever, it's kind of a single sign-on. That's a big deal these days. So there's ways to segment all of the districts. So how do you find the right districts? It's about segmentation. And then also, it's going back to an earlier point, knowing that district's strategic objectives and how the admins, teachers, and community are trying to address them. Huge deal, right? Learn the district's budget, right? Or parts of the budget that are relevant to your work. Because why spend time targeting a district when you know there's no funds available, right? So, and we're going to be talking about funding here in a little bit. So look at the district's website, look at their blog. What are because a lot of superintendents, they're public figureheads, right, in the community. So a lot of them have public comments. Looking at what is important to them. They're sharing it in blogs. They're sharing it in interviews, like this. It's really, really, really important. And then, develop. And then once, you have time to do that, then really finding the right districts using a segmentation methodology and building a rubric around, okay, what is important for the district, and then matching that with what is your product or service really great at, right? And so, kind of seeing where those two intersect, and building a rubric around that. So whether it's, a weighted rubric around, hey, we know we serve Title I schools really well. We know we work with superintendents really well. We know we work with schools that have certain buying cycles, right, or decision timeframes. We work with schools really well that we know use XYZ core curriculum, right, and we can help fill in the gaps. So whatever your rubric is, right, aligning that to the district's priorities, and then from there, building your segmentation model. That's always we believe, the right recipe for targeting which districts are the right one for you. Now, the last thing I'll mention about this is, in my staff, they chide me about it pretty much every week, is one of my favorite sayings is, you can't boil the ocean, especially in the business. So we all have limited budgets. We all have limited time. So if we're going to have success, if we do our homework, we segment, we understand priorities, we match it with what we're good at, then we have a segmented list of states, regions, district, counties, and that's where we put our chips. That's where we bet our chips. So in our experience, that's been the best way to get the highest return and highest impact on every dollar that's invested in trying to grow your sales efforts in K-12.
Okay, so thank you for that. And segmentation, prioritizing the segments, and yeah, you can't do everything. You know, one of the other things, because you use the term rubric, and you know we're talking about this, and so I find that marketing and selling is educating, and so I think that a lot of us on this call today, if we're current educators, former educators, a lot of the things that you've done to teach people things, those same tactics, strategies, they work really well with marketing and sales. So let's dig in a little bit deeper, and you know, I think of it as how do you actually cut through the clutter. So can we get a little bit tactical and spend some time with what are the steps to success? I would love for you to share a little bit of like secret sauce, like literally really specific things that you have done or you know that people have done, actions, activities that have helped them be successful. So let's move on, and we'll let Brian really talk to us about really specific things that can be done that you might not have thought of.
Well, I'll share a little story about how I wound up getting a $10 million order from LA Unified. And just a small little order. And really what this was the helpful hint, or the secret sauce, as Liz likes to call it, is focusing on meetings that can provide broader information on the district strategy. So LA Unified, San Diego Unified is another one. They have independent oversight committees that meet regularly. They meet, you know, often, right? And they review how their bond money is going to be spent. So these meetings, or these forums is what they're usually called, offer primers on what the district's spending priorities are. So this is, again, going back to, hey, are you doing your homework on the district? Are you understanding what are the priorities for that district? And oftentimes, the medium and larger, and certainly the large mega, I call them the mega districts, you know, the LAs and New Yorks, Chicagos, they have oversight committees that meet regularly to talk about what's important, how much bond money they have, and what are their priorities, and where are they going to be focusing on investing those dollars. So attending those meetings are really important. Talk about a great way to get intel about hearing from the horse's mouth, you know, where that oversight committee, i.e. who's going to be working directly with the superintendent, is going to be you know, looking to invest their dollars. So that's kind of a way that, you know, I have found to, you know, break through the clutter, you know, because I feel like, wow, I've got a head start now. If I know I'm selling a learning management system platform, you know, and I'm at an oversight committee, you know, some evening in the middle of the week in January, and I find that, wow, this district is really wanting to look, and they're going to go out to a new RFP, or they're going to be making a direct purchase of a new learning management system, man, I'm first one on it. So you can start building your sales strategy from there. So I found that's pretty good. I think the other thing in terms of how to cut through the clutter, being authentic, right? What do they always say? You know, people that actually, we're all humans. Humans, we're a fragile species. We're all vulnerable at certain levels. And so are the customers we're selling to. So showing vulnerability, not being I know it all, you know, every time, everywhere, every day, you know, being authentic with especially folks now. Imagine the pressure, you know, being a district administrator with all the craziness that they're having to deal with right now. So really just being authentic, being attentive, listening more than speaking, all of those things that you guys know, really, really, really important right now.
Yeah, thank you. And clearly I'm taking notes for everyone. So I will put those in the follow-up email as well, just the things that have stuck out to me, because I'm learning a lot today too. So we've prepared, we've navigated the waters, We've got that meeting. So let's move, hoping the visuals will help remind people of how important this next step is. Keep it going. What about the follow-up? How important is it? Because Lori shared that with us a little bit, so let's do another round on that. And then what are some unique, interesting, super effective ways to do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great, right? This is, this is now, okay, we've broken through the clutter. We've been authentic. We've figured out what our value prop is. And we believe that the meeting we just had, that the district bought it. And they said, wow, okay, this is cool. So then what, right? So I guess that's where we're at. And at this point in time, I'm a big believer for those that you actually have a team. That's meaning, yeah, 2 or more people, right? Because my guess is a lot of the educators on the call are solopreneurs, edupreneurs. Get you to grow. So using a team process or using your team resources if needed. So ways to do that. So during your meeting, obviously you're going to be keeping a list of follow-up items and action items. So obviously being diligent, being responsive, and writing down and literally sending that list to your decision maker who you had the meeting with. That's always number one. Hey, great meeting, enjoyed it. Hey, here's some of the open items. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. We'll be following up on these. Let's schedule another meeting for next Tuesday or Wednesday. Which day works best for you, right? So really identifying what are the open items. Then this is where using a team sales approach is really, really powerful. So depending upon the opportunity size, depending upon the urgency, is this going to be a media purchase, or are we looking now to the 2021 or even 2021-22 school year, depending upon the complexity of your product or your service. So at this point, opening your team vault and start bringing in people, access to people is always a good thing. So let's use PD. So if you're in the PD business, or if you're even in the SaaS, software as a service or curriculum, what have you, giving a preview, introducing your implementation specialist, introducing your PD experts, right, into the equation at this point is always a good thing, because now they're still interviewing you and they want to get a sense for, okay, this is going to be someone, there has to be people behind Liz or Brian. So we want to kind of get a sense for what's the quality of their team, and do we think we can work as a great partner with this firm. So access to the team. The other thing too then would be giving them, again, if they're a high segmented priority district in your target list, creating a special offer, allowing them to get a sneak peek, allowing them to be the first beta of whatever the new product offering is, right? Giving them some type of special feel or special incentive to say, wow, cool, we're ready now as a district to move to the next step. And oftentimes it'll be a trial or a beta, right? Or something like that. Then the other thing, again, under the team selling strategy here is if the district that's, at some point is starting to go quiet, starting to go dark, right? It happens to all of us. Oftentimes, I always like to bring in, when I was selling every single day, if it was the district size is big enough, I would bring my CEO into some of the meetings, right? I would have my CEO send an email. I'd have my CEO make a phone call. Because what I found is that would typically escalate, right? The urgency with that district, and you become more of a priority. And so again, these are just specifics about how to use a sales team approach. And if you don't have a CEO, or if you are the CEO, great. Let them know that up front, because that typically is going to help. And if needed, if you're the CEO or you're the solopreneur, bringing in some noted expert, call in a favor, find a noted expert, try to align yourselves with them. Any way you can bring value to that district at that fragile point of your selling, where you're at in your selling process, we found is a best practice.
Okay. Nope, that's a great idea, and thank you for scaling it, right? Like, so you're not, even if you are just one person, there's ways to address that. So the next thing that we have, you put together a specific like case study story to really bring all of it together and talk about how one client actually executed on all of these different things. So I haven't heard this, so I'm looking forward to it.
This is real time. So we just have a phenomenal partner, and they're a startup, right? Been around a couple of years in the K-12 business, and they have a really cool curriculum management solution, right? There's lots of districts. They're using all different types of content, right, for their teachers, for their students. So it's a challenge at times to keep track of all this stuff. So in 2019, at the end of 2019, the first district came on, right? And this is after operating for 2.5 years. So, as you can imagine what the cash burn was. So for all of you edupreneurs, you guys know what that means, right? A lot more is going out every month than the little that is coming in. So oftentimes in the venture capital world, it's how much runway do you have left, right? How much cash do you have in the bank to be able to survive for the next 6 months, 12 months, what have you? And this was a serious cash burn situation. So so we went through the process, went through the planning phase, went through the market opportunity, went through our segmentation, and really the issue was our client was trying to boil the ocean, right? That was the strategy, and it wasn't working, right? You can't be everything to everyone at every time. Just won't happen, especially if you're a company that's less than $50 million in annual sales selling into districts. So, going through a very disciplined rubric, building our segmentation, really spending time on refining our value prop, really understanding how we differentiate, really honing in and practicing this stuff with the sales team, and developing a very disciplined email outreach program. I'm not even talking doing conferences and trade shows. I'm talking email primarily. I'm talking some social media, but this is a very disciplined outbound email approach. And our goal was to sign up 20 districts this year before June 1st, right? Because if not, that little runway we talked about, that was getting shorter by the day. So so fast forward, here we are, April 29th, as of earlier this week, 37 districts already, right? 37 districts in the mix. And how did that happen? Well, again, using segmentation, we found that for this particular solution, small to medium districts, right, in suburban type markets with high Title I, with superintendents with 24 months or less, right? Those are some of the rubric items that we built the strategy around. And lo and behold, email open rates have been at 40-something%. Lead conversion rates are close to 50%. We've got another 100 qualified leads right now. We're working in the sales funnel. My guess is probably 40 to 50 of those will come through as well. So, the moral of the story here is, to meet the runway needs, we needed to have at least 20 districts, on board rolling. And, so we said, all right, we got to get serious about this. We got to be smart. We're all working hard, but we got to work smart. So let's use this segmentation approach. And we think, like I said, we think we're going to be somewhere between 60 to 70 new districts in the course of 1 year. So we're feeling pretty good about that.
That's amazing. I know that segmentation works, but to see it that clearly really highlights the upfront work and what it eventually brings. And I think too, it helps you conserve your resources and make really good use of them. So one of the things we talked about yesterday, and we just got a question that folds into this. So Chelsea's asking about how do you, I'm going to reword it a little bit, Chelsea. She's asking, do you see a difference between the effectiveness of virtual and in-person? And I'm wondering if we want to think about it a little bit, like how do you make a virtual meeting effective? And then I'd like for us to move, because we're talking about the new times, one of the things that we've been, the questions that's been posed to us recently is, are schools still spending? And I know that you have a lot of thoughts, insight, and knowledge about the current funding. So if we want to start with like the meetings and how do you make a virtual environment successful? And then let's just ask that question, like, are schools spending? What's going on?
Yeah, good question. Well, the whole virtual sales strategy, right? It's here to stay. And I think everybody understands that now. And 45 days ago, we were still unsure. A lot of district decision makers were like, what the hell is Zoom? Who is this? Who is Zoom? Is that a scooter? Is that a new buggy for my kid? So it's here to stay. And, there's lots of, you can Google and you can find, what are the top 10 things to do a great Zoom presentation. I would encourage you to look at that stuff. But I think for at least what we're seeing with our clients and ourselves is using the word, being authentic again, because nearly everyone's working from home right now. We all have kids in the background. Liz was great at the beginning saying, hey, I've got 3 kids. We're all sucking the internet at the same time. So if it gets wonky, sorry. Showing vulnerability, being authentic, that's super, super great. So I would just encourage that. In terms of when you get a district decision maker on one, shorter is better in terms of your meetings. They're so pressed for time. Be clear, be precise, have your value prop and how you differentiate. Most importantly, what are you bringing to them? What can you promise them, in that first meeting in terms of outcomes? What can you promise them in terms of support, implementation, customer service, right? Be prepared. And if you can do it in 5 minutes or less, even better. What I found is most district decision maker meetings that are 15 minutes or longer, it starts to get a little wonky, in all honesty. So keep them short if you can.
That's really great advice. Yeah, I've heard that repeatedly, even down to principal level. They don't have time. So get to the point. And the good news, right, about that is you get to the point and then you get to the next step. And so you're just progressing and moving things forward. Megan, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. I'm sorry?
Do you want me to touch on the funding quickly?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Another question came through and I got distracted. Thank you very much. Yes, let's talk about funding.
Okay, so this is a question for the audience, and I'm not sure, Kara or Liz, if you guys can do a quick poll, but for those of you that were in this industry, so I got into the industry back in 1990. So I've been around for a little bit, and I've survived 2 huge events. Everybody remembers the whole .com, right? The Y2K .com crash, the world was going to end, computers were dead. This is 1999. Then we had the financial crisis, right? 2008, 2009. And this is a question for everyone on this webinar. And the winner or winners, you get a piece of virtual chocolate. I will throw it to you. So can you guess, back in 2008, how much education stimulus money was put into the system. And this is that between that whole 08, 09, 2010 timeframe. So this is K-12 plus higher ed, just round numbers.
And put your guess in the chat if you want to guess. We didn't create a specific poll, but if you want to just hit your chat, if we get any responses, Carol, let us know.
Cool.
I was wrong. I'll just tell everyone, don't be afraid, don't be shy, don't be afraid.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, so I'm laughing. So I'm super surprised. One person got it right.
Yeah.
The managing partner of Agile Education, yeah, he got it right. He knows. Verlin got it right.
Yeah.
You don't get chocolate, Verlin.
Verlin, there's your chocolate. So,
so we have 0, 10 billion, 1 billion, 30 billion, 25. Yeah, we've got, so those are the ranges of responses.
okay. So everybody has heard of the CARES Act, right? A couple of weeks ago it got passed. And in the CARES Act, as of now, there's about $30 billion that's going to be pushed into the educational budgets, right? Upcoming soon. And the way that 30 billion breaks out is you get about 14 billions going to higher ed, and 13.5 billion is going to K-12. Okay. So, and then you've got 3 billion that's going to go to governors. You know, each governor is going to get 3 billion bucks, and it's kind of their discretion how they spend it. And then you've got 2 billion going to E-rate, right? So this is like distance learning, internet connectivity between, you know, for families at home, stuff like this. And then you've got pockets going to, you know, specific groups like the BIE, the Bureau of Indian Education Schools. You know, they get $69 million, right? But the big number here is $30 billion of stimulus has been put in or is in the process of being distributed out to schools. That's a good thing for all of us on this webinar. So the question is, how does that compare to what happened in the financial crisis, 08, 09? Back then, the answer is 100 billion was put into the economy to stabilize the education, you know, markets, K-12 higher ed. So knowing that a decade ago, 100 billion was put in, so far, round one of CARES Act, 30 billion has been put in. What we believe is going to happen, and again, this is purely speculation. This is not, we don't have any insider information, but a lot of our experience, a lot of our contacts, we think there's going to be more put in, right? How much? I guess that's the question, and when. But, you know, if you try to benchmark this compared to a decade ago, you know, it's significantly less than where it is. I've seen speculation that they're trying to get another 150 billion. But, you know, the reason we bring this up is we think there's going to be more put into the system. And the lessons learned back from 08, 09, 2010, and trust me, I was on the front line selling every day during that time. If you aligned with the district, if you understood their needs, right? And if you really became an expert in terms of how those funds are being allocated, and by the way, these new CARES Act dollars are following the Title I allocation percentages. So a trick is become a Title I expert, because that's great for Title I, but this is also where a lot of these CARES Act dollars are going to follow that same formula percentage. So if you can bring solutions and also bring funding intelligence to the table, oftentimes your view in terms of your relationship with your client, with your district level decision maker, what I find is you move from being a supplier or vendor to really becoming a partner if you're really bringing those solutions to the table.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for touching me. And there's a couple other questions. So one, I just want to point out, so Verlin, who got it right, who I work with. So I'm going to also, because Verlin got it right, here's your chocolate, Verlin. Verlin actually created a virtual readiness score for all of the districts in the US. And so he went through and crunched a bunch of numbers because of this, you know, there's basically very simplistically, two groups of people. There's schools that are ready and there's schools that aren't. And so again, back to the point of narrowing your focus and your position. So we've put that together because of the funding that's coming out, and you just kind of have to speak their language, address their specific needs. So Verlin, thank you for doing that for all of us. So there's two other questions. I'm gonna, someone asks, you know, he says he heard most of the dollars are going to remote learning. Is this true? I don't know if you know that.
You know, it's still to be determined. So, yeah, a lot of the money, it's also going to food programs. You know, I'm sure a lot of you guys are hearing in your districts how, you know, they're having to feed a lot of their kiddos and families. So yeah, so a lot of this first, you know, 30 billion or the 13.5 billion going to K-12, a lot of that is going to food, and distance learning or remote learning companies certainly are going to be two primary benefactors. Who else is going to be winners in this? I don't know yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of that. One of the things that I was reading is that they're following the Title I distribution just because it's there and it makes it easier, but they're also relaxing a lot of the requirements. So I think, you know, it's everything that you've shared with us applies even more. You really have to understand what those districts are prioritizing. And I think the big difference right now is that they might not have even had a chance to meet about it. It might be like internal emails or something. So having those relationships and those conversations is really important. Do you know anything about Canada funding, the Canadian funding that's happening? I don't know.
No, not off the top of my head.
RJ asked, not me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry, I can't comment on that right now.
Okay, apologies. I don't really know much about that either. We got a question earlier, and this is where, you know, I think that sometimes just getting into the blocking and tackling helps people to be the most successful. So will you share with me after this, and we can put it in our follow-up, if you on your website, and I can look too, someone's asking just to see just a basic outline or an example of an email that does a good job of showing a brand new value proposition. I'm sure you've got examples and stuff, or we can share something. I think that's a good follow-up. So those are all the questions that I can see. Brian, let's move, Kara, if you don't mind, to our next visual, our next thought. And this floor is yours. What would you like to close us out with?
So really, it's really about what are you guys doing, right, to improve your skills right now, right, to be successful in selling to districts, right? What are you doing to differentiate, to get yourself in front of admins, right? Not because they need to talk to you, because they want to talk to you, right? That's the holy grail. So what I often refer to this is how can you become a lead magnet yourself, where referrals, all of a sudden you're getting incoming calls, you're getting inquiries. A good example of this is one of my friends. She's a solo edupreneur. Karen, she's in North Carolina. She's in the pre-K space. She's got amazing SEL curriculum. You know, she is doing a great job of engaging with her clients, and her clients then are referring her out to other schools and districts in her area, right? So, you know, so when we look at what are the core foundational requirements to be successful in selling to districts, it's really about once you begin to get incoming calls from referrals, you know things are working, right? You know things are going right. Until you get to that point where your phone is ringing as opposed to all of your efforts, you know, 95% of your effort is doing outreach, cold emails, cold calls, right? That's the very beginning phase. But over the next 12 months, and if you're 12 months or more into this, you know, our kind of recipe for where is your business coming from, you know, we kind of break it into new business self-generated, new business referrals, and then you've got renewal business. Renewal business should be 50% at least. New business referral should be 35%. And new business kind of self-generated prospecting is typically 15. So if you're doing it right, if you're doing it, where your customers are seeing value in your relationship, and you're viewed as a lead magnet, where you're not a vendor, you're not a supplier, but you're a partner, right? That's the place we got to get you to. So I just encourage everyone, be a lead magnet. Do those things that we've been talking about. You know what it is. It's not rocket science, but using a disciplined approach to planning your territory, not boiling the ocean. Those are the proven ingredients for engaging with K-12 decision makers, certainly.
Yes, thank you. And that's a really great wrap up of everything. And clearly we had a bit of a technical difficulty, so we didn't get to show your perfect visual to help everyone remember when it's important what it is you said. So just imagine a horseshoe magnet pulling in all of those great sales and connections. So Brian, again, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate you taking the time out of something that cropped up in the middle of everything else that we have going on. I know that everyone who joined us today, super helpful, really, really appreciates and values what you brought to us today. And so, super generous of you. And so the first 10 people who reach out to him, I'm going to share his email in your follow-up email address or email message. And if you're one of the first 10 people, you can get on the phone with Brian and he'll walk you through a couple ideas, thoughts, the consultation. But at this point, it's just two people chalking it out because there's no roadmap for what we're going through right now. But if you'd like to take advantage of Brian and his brain, if you've got something really pressing, he'd be more than happy to help you out, and he can kind of, get a little bit more of a feel for what's happening in the market right now. So thank you to everyone. Thank you, Verlin, for joining and being right. And I appreciate it. Kara, you rock. Thank you for helping make this run very, very smoothly. And I'm Liz Burkhart with Agile Education Marketing. We do our best to bring you a webinar like this every month. And we've been partnering with other experts like Brian and his company at Education Market Experts to help round out and make sure the knowledge is everything that can help you guys all be successful. So have a great week. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Follow the rules. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.